Hello and welcome. Today, we're going to dive into a really powerful mental model. This is the kind of thinking that some of the world's biggest innovators use to completely reshape industries. It's called first principles thinking, and it's all about demolition, tearing ideas down to their very foundations so you can build them back, but way, way stronger.
Have you ever really thought about this? Why is it that some people can create these massive, world-changing breakthroughs while most of us are just kind of stuck making tiny, incremental improvements? It's a huge question, right? Well, the answer usually isn't about what people think, but how they think. It's about a mental tool that lets them cut right through all the noise to find what's really true.
So here's our roadmap for this explainer. First, we're going to identify the enemy, this thing called mental inertia that we're all up against. Then we'll introduce the hero of the story, first principles thinking. I'll walk you through a super simple 3-step method to actually use it. After that, we'll look at some mind-blowing examples. We're talking rockets and electric cars before we bring it all home and see how you can apply this exact same tool to your own life.
All right, so before we can start building, we've got to understand what's holding us back. And it turns out the biggest barrier we face, well, it's this invisible force inside our own heads. It's called cognitive inertia.
You know, our brains are basically wired to be efficient, to save energy, so they absolutely love shortcuts. We just naturally rely on what we already know, on what we've seen before. And look, most of the time that's fine, but it's also a trap. This cognitive inertia, it keeps us locked into old ways of doing things, old assumptions, and it literally stops us from seeing brand new, radical solutions. This is the very thing that first principles thinking is designed to just demolish.
So, how do we fight back against this mental gravity that's always pulling us down? Well, that brings us right to the hero of our story. First Principles Thinking, or FPT for short.
Okay, this slide really cuts to the chase. See, most of us, most of the time, we think by analogy. We look at what already exists and we try to improve it. We see a phone and think, hey, let's make the camera a little bit better this year. That is the path of imitation. First Principles Thinking, that's a completely different game. It doesn't even look at the current phone. It asks, what is a camera at its absolute physical core? What is light? What is a sensor? You see the difference? One is imitation, the other is pure invention.
And look, this isn't some new age productivity hack. Philosophers like Aristotle were using this thousands of years ago, but innovators like Elon Musk have basically supercharged it for the modern world. You should think of it like a mental bulldozer. He just clears away all the rubble of, well, that's how we've always done it, so that you can get down to the bedrock, the raw, undeniable facts, and from there, you can build something totally new.
Now, all this sounds great in theory, right? But how do you actually, do it? That is where this incredibly practical 3-step method comes into play.
It's a really simple but really powerful loop. Step 1, you question everything. Everything you think you know. You ask, why do we do it this way? Is that actually true? Step 2, you decompose. You break the problem down into its smallest possible pieces. The raw materials, the laws of physics, the fundamental costs. And finally, step 3, you reconstruct. With only those basic truths as your building blocks, you build a brand new solution from scratch.
Here's another way to look at it, kind of like a cheat sheet for the whole process. Each step has its own core question. For step 1, why do I believe this is true? That's all about finding your own blind spots. For step 2, what are the essential elements? That helps you find the real foundation. And for step 3, how can I build a better system from zero? Well, that's your launchpad for real, game-changing innovation.
Okay, enough with the theory. Let's see what this thing looks like out in the real world, where this exact method has been used to just completely upend entire industries.
So let's rewind to the early 2000s. Back then, everybody, and I mean everybody, in the auto industry knew that batteries for cars were just insanely expensive. Over $600 per kilowatt hour. This wasn't just an opinion. It was treated like a law of nature. And because of it, electric cars were seen as a total non-starter.
But then, someone came along and asked that deceptively simple first principles question. They completely ignored the market price, they ignored what the experts said, and they just asked, what is a battery really made of?
And what's the answer? Well, it turns out a battery isn't some magical, complex black box. A battery is just a collection of basic materials. Things like cobalt, nickel, lithium, aluminum. These are all just commodities you can look up the price for on the open market.
And here's the kicker. When you actually added up the real cost of those raw materials, the price wasn't anywhere near $600. It was closer to $80.
That huge gap, that was not a law of physics. It was just the industry's cognitive inertia. And inside that massive gap was the opportunity to build a company like Tesla.
And this wasn't a one-off thing. The exact same logic was applied to rockets. The truth in that industry was that rockets are disposable. You use them once, you throw them away. But first principles thinking asks, why? A rocket is just a vehicle. Why can't it be reusable like an airplane is? Just questioning that one truth led to SpaceX and completely flipped the economics of space travel on its head.
Okay, so let's bring this whole concept down from space and right into our own everyday lives. For this last section, let's look at how you can use this incredible tool to reconstruct your own health, your time, and even your finances.
Yeah, you really don't need to be building rockets to make first principles thinking work for you. You can apply it to your calendar, your diet, your budget, pretty much anywhere in your life where you feel stuck in old habits that aren't really serving you.
Let's get really practical here. Think about your time. Are you just assuming that a full calendar means you're being productive? The first principles question is, which of these activities actually generates real value toward my goals? Or what about health? Are you about to jump on the latest fad diet? The first principles question is, what does my body fundamentally need for energy, sleep, and movement? It's all about shifting from just copying what other people are doing to inventing what truly works for you. This chart, oh man, this is something I think we can all relate to. It's the time management trap. Look at where most of our energy goes, into urgent tasks. These are the emails, the notifications, the fires we're always putting out. First principles thinking helps you take a step back, deconstruct what really matters, and consciously shift your energy to what is truly important. It's about flipping that ratio to build something for the long term, not just to survive the day. And this applies big time to your career too. It is so easy to get caught up chasing fancy job titles or whatever seems to be the popular path. But first principles thinking asks you to break it all down. Ask yourself, what am I uniquely good at? What do I genuinely find motivating? And what is a real need out there in the world? Finding real, sustainable success is all about finding the sweet spot right at the intersection of those three fundamental truths. So to bring this all together, our brains love shortcuts, but those shortcuts lead to inertia. First principles thinking is your weapon against that inertia. Just remember those three simple steps. Question your assumptions, decompose to the fundamental facts, and reconstruct a better solution from zero. It's a tool you can use for pretty much anything, from building a revolutionary company to just building a better, more intentional life.
And that really just leaves us with one final question for you to think about. I want you to take a hard look at your own world, your work, your life. What is that one thing that everyone, maybe even you, accepts as an undeniable truth? Is it really a truth? Or is it just an old assumption, sitting there, waiting for you to come along and demolish it?
Thanks for joining us for this explainer. Go find something to deconstruct,